Hello all my Kinvians, and welcome to the much delayed, as it feels like with a lot of my videos lately, but the much delayed review of episode 6 of Discovering Game of Thrones, or rather the review of episode 6 of Game of Thrones, and anyway. That's besides the point. Today I'm going to be doing the review of a Golden Crown. At least I believe that is the name. Yes, it is a Golden Crown. I'm tired. Let's get right into it, and I'm going to cover some of my favorite parts about this episode. And to be completely honest, I may go through this a little bit faster than I usually do with my reviews.
No.
But it's because there's a certain part about this episode that I really want to touch on and give most of my focus. And you may notice that I won't be including the captions or the pictures with this one. And there's kind of a reason for that, but mostly it's to get this review out to you all so that I can begin the new format. But again, since I said this already, let's get right into some of my favorite parts of this episode, starting with the egg and the fire, or at least that's what I'm calling the scene, because just it's the scene where Daenerys has the seemingly fossilized, or well, I assume, I guess maybe, fossilized dragon egg, puts it into the fire, and then she grabs it and picks it up, and one of her servants, I guess, comes up and grabs the egg from her, but the egg burns her because of how hot it is. And we basically get this indication of a line that comes a bit later that I will touch on, but we see Daenerys hasn't been burned at all. Like, she's perfectly fine, and in fact she was just sort of sitting there with it in her hands for several seconds, but then her servant touches it for just a moment and her hands are wounded and burned. So I'll get back to that in just a little bit. I believe it's with one of my quotes. Yes, yes, it'll be with one of the quotes. So, moving on from there, again, that's just a great scene, one that I really loved. But after that, it's the scene where Bran gets his new saddle, after we have another weird scene with the three-eyed raven, or crow? I guess it is a raven. But it's Bran, his brother Robb, and the wildlings. And my god, that scene was so good. Well, first of all, to the best of my knowledge, other than just like the corpses that we saw in the first episode, the intro to the first episode, I haven't really gotten to see any of the wildlings. Again, at least that's what I am assuming they are, because they refer to them being from, you know, north of the wall, and they're heading as far south as they can go. But I like it, one, because we do finally get to see some of these wildlings, but also just the entire interaction, the entire back and forth of what's going on there, of, you know, Bran trying to, well, I guess sort of establish himself, make these people fear him because of the fact that he's son of the Lord of the North. And then Robb coming in, trying to save Bran, doing a pretty good job of it at first, but then it comes down to Theon Greyjoy having to save Bran, and well, that's actually another part that I'll touch on here in a little bit, but overall, just that entire scene was just, I really enjoyed it, and it's another one of those moments where the show is bringing in so much more action now. Like, just in this one episode alone, like, it started off with, you know, the face-off between Jaime and his men, and them slaughtering Ned's men, and almost slaughtering Ned. But yeah, I love the introduction of action, how there's so much more action coming into the show now, and I assume there'll probably be lulls, undoubtedly, but it's likely going to be much more prominent as the show continues from this point. But moving on from there, Oh, this covers so many scenes, but the interactions between Tyrion Lannister and Mord. At least I assume that's what the character's name is because he keeps yelling Mord. And just the entire back and forth between those two in every scene is absolutely brilliant. And I don't think it's possible to watch, especially those first few scenes where Mord comes in and smacks Tyrion with whatever it is. Is it like a leather satchel or something? Whatever it is, he whacks him with it. And just the lines are performed excellently. The guy playing Mord he does an excellent job of just being this, not exactly mindless, but relatively stupid, very focused character. No gold! It's just... It's gotta be some of the best stuff I've seen on TV, or in this case my computer, in such a long time. I absolutely loved it. But, okay, moving on from there. Again, it's basically everything having to do with Tyrion and Mord. Thumbs up. But moving on from there, the scene with Arya's training with, oh, what is his name? What is the trainer's name? Syrio. That scene right there, well, first of all, it definitely had, one, it delivered one of my favorite lines, probably in the show so far. And it was very dramatic. It was sort of helping Arya work through the different emotions she was experiencing at that time. She was troubled, as Syrio said. But the way Syrio addressed it, like he kept whacking her with the wooden sword. Like he didn't give her. It was, you know, it was definitely sort of an aggressive way of doing it, but in the end, especially because of her personality, I feel like it worked well in helping her get her mind moving, getting her out of the rut that these troubles, the troubles on her mind were giving her. So, yes, that entire scene, it's another one I'm going to be touching on again in a minute, but again, because, quote, a very good, awesome quote. But yeah, that entire scene, awesome. And moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode, Daenerys' ceremony with the horse heart and the tribal singing. I'm just going to say it right here because I actually have a few WTF moments, but I will go ahead and say this. Daenerys' ceremony is definitely one of my what the moments of this episode. Not so much because it's shocking, but because of how drawn out it is. I mean, yeah, it does get extended a little bit by the conversation between Viserys, however his name is pronounced, and Ser Jorah, but that scene is so drawn out, and just the blood, how it gets caked up. The makeup in this scene was amazing, like, because, you know, while she's eating the heart, it's rather liquidy and gross, but then after that it sort of solidifies and starts to turn, you know, a dark reddish black or blackish red, whatever. And so it looks so real, and just the thought of her eating this entire horse's heart is just, well, one, if you got a weak stomach, you don't want to be eating during that scene. But there was just something about it that was just so beyond just the shocking and grossness of it, just such a good and powerful scene. And it might have a lot to do with how Viserys comes to realize how much they love her, how much they love Dany, and just how much love she gets and how much she gives. It's like she understands and is learning their language. She's becoming one of them, and it was just one of those scenes that was just so powerful and so awesome, yet messed up. But moving on from there, my next favorite part of this episode Well, it was right after that, and it's when Ser Jorah faces off against Viserys, who is basically getting ready to leave with the eggs, because Viserys doesn't, you know, he says, oh, with these I can buy my army, I can go back and I can attack, because I'm going to talk more about him in the end, but that scene right there, like, it's just one of the moments that made me just love Ser Jorah more than I already did. I really enjoy him as a character, which probably means he's going to die eventually, but regardless. Okay, so moving on from there. Oh my god. The scene where Tyrion confesses his crimes. I mean, there's nothing else I can say about that. It's childish and ridiculous and absolutely hilarious. And it gave me, not a quote of the episode, but quite possibly one of the strangest lines that might actually be a thing that I've never heard of before. I made the bald man cry. Oh, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and I'm just going to leave it at that. If you don't know what scene I'm talking about, well, you're lost. But, moving on from there, the trial by combat. And, well, the actual fight between Tyrion's champion, the volunteer, I think his name is Bronn? That's what I wrote down from the help, thanks to the help of Amazon. And then Ser Vardis. And just the entire way that went down, and I have a feeling that this trial by combat is going to be something that comes up again in the future, probably a lot. And the entire fight, and the way it ends, because, I mean, obviously Bronn wins against Ser Vardis. He does him dirty. I don't know why I said it like that, but there was just something about that entire fight scene, and then the way it ended with Lysa, whatever her name is, Kat's sister, saying, "You fight without honor." I do. Or basically he said, yeah, I did. He fights with honor, and he's dead. Paraphrasing, to say the least. But just, there's something about that entire segment that was just so brutal and brilliant to watch. Again, but these action scenes, eventually down the line, they may not be as frequent as they are in this episode, seemingly. But, I mean, they're just so well choreographed. And I do actually have an issue with that scene, but I'll touch on that when I get to my annoyances. Moving on from there. Oh, Eddard's decree, which is what I decided to call it because Ned's decree just didn't have the same oomph. But Eddard's decree about bringing the mountain to justice. Anyone that associated with the mountain, and when he ransacked and destroyed was it the riverfront, or basically the area where these people had come from. And then he also makes the decree that Tyrion Lannister needs to come to the king, well, basically come there. Getting my words mixed up. Otherwise, he'll be seen as a traitor to the crown, or, well, yeah, basically that. So this entire huge badass decree, and it's, I mean, I definitely saw the mountain part coming, or at least, you know, getting revenge for these people, getting justice for these people. But then he took it a little bit farther, and although it's probably not in his best interest if he wants to live, spoiler alert, it was such a powerful scene. Like, Sean Bean just, I want to see more things that he lives in. Oops, spoiler alert. But I want... Seriously, he's such a good actor, and that scene was just so powerful. And he's crippled at this point. Like, he can't walk without a cane. But okay, moving on from there. Oh, poor Theon. I feel so bad for Theon. He's not exactly the most likable character in most situations, but he's... I don't know the right way to put it. Basically, his favorite woman from the brothel is heading out to King's... I am forgetting the name. Basically, she's heading out to the where the kingdom is. I can't remember words, but you know, and he's so like he basically was in love with her. I mean, that was painfully obvious from that scene. He tells her he will miss her, and he flips her a coin just so he can see that one more time. It's so sad, and I say that, one, because of that scene, but also just how he's treated overall by Robb and some of the others in general. But moving on from there, because again, I'm still spending far too long on certain things. Oh, the scene where Ned speaks with Arya and Sansa. And I'm going to go ahead and ruin one of my quotes that I wrote down just because of it. One, it's a good little scene. I really enjoy it. But probably the greatest line that came out of that scene was from Sansa. And it's, "I don't want someone brave and gentle and strong. I want him!" Referring to Joffrey. Which both Arya and Ned crack a smile, as I cracked up during the reaction. So, oh, it's just such a great line. So yeah, that's one of several reasons why I like that scene, but that's the one I'll stick with for now. Ooh, yes. The truth of Joffrey. And it really did, several people mentioned this in the comments for the reaction, but I need to listen to what Sansa was saying to really get the full connection between that and then Ned, you know, finding out the lineage. And it's the line that has been spoken before that kept bothering me, but the seed is strong. They're referring to the fact that basically the Baratheons have a very dominant trait, or one of their dominant traits is black hair. And so had the child come from Cersei and was also the child of Robert, Joffrey would have black hair, but he doesn't. So, yes, I finally made the connection there. I was so insanely happy when I finally did. Thank you all for being patient with me in that regard, but oh, I was so glad that I actually did watch this a second time to take my notes down. But moving on from there, my final favorite part about this episode is when Viserys gets his crown. And I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit. But for now, let's move into my annoyances with this episode. And there are a few. Now, this one, it was pretty obvious how I felt when the scene occurred. But when Robert slapped Cersei, that's just... I know crap like that happened during the medieval times that this is taking place. I know crap like that happened, or crap like that happens today, but still, I didn't care for that. Regardless of my feelings towards Cersei as a character, that's just, it made me like Robert much less at that point. Like, he's always seemed kind of funny and weird and stupid, not exactly in love with Cersei, but that for some reason to me that felt like taking a few steps, or going a few steps too far. But okay, that's beside the point. My next annoyance with the episode is Robb's treatment of Theon. Especially after Theon saves Bran from the wildling who had a dagger to his throat. Now, as Robb says, yes, he could have accidentally killed Bran as well with his arrow, but it's pretty clear at this point that Theon is very skilled with a bow, very accurate, so it I don't know, you would think that Robb would have been maybe a bit more grateful that he had saved his brother, and him, I guess, kind of in the process. But yeah, I just I don't care for Robb's treatment of Theon, and I have a feeling that, well, Theon hasn't always been treated the greatest because he's a Greyjoy. He's not exactly a servant, I guess, but also not of even status with the children or any of the Starks, really. So I expect to get more of that probably as the show goes along, but I don't care for that. I really hope Robb sort of comes around and starts to be less of a jerk to Theon. At least, again, in my opinion. My third annoyance with this episode is quite simple, and I am so sorry to the actor that portrayed this character, but Prince Robin, or King Robin, if he's supposed to be the king at that point, the creepy little kid. I don't like that kid at all. And I'm sure that was part of how it was supposed to be acted, just this very strange, disturbing, somewhat psychotic portrayal, but I just do not like that kid at all. I was going to say some horrible things, but I won't, because it might come up again another day. But, okay, moving on from there, my next annoyance with the episode, and this is probably no surprise to anyone at all. Actually, I have two more, but I'm going to combine them into one. Number one, Sansa. She was doing pretty good, and then she didn't. The way she was treating the servant that's there with the girls, I don't know, she's just being such a stuck-up little, not nice word. Oh, and then that scene with Sansa and Joffrey. Oh, that was just painful to watch. Not because it was poorly acted, I mean, not that at all. I can't stand those two characters. And to see this horribly schmaltzy scene, oh, it kind of gives you the gag reflex, like, ugh. Or at least it did for me. So, okay, those are all my annoyances with this episode. Oh, and I actually do have a question. My question is, during the trial by combat, why didn't they clear out the area where the combat was taking place? Like, I know that there's only so much room for people to go, but it seems like it would have made sense for, I don't know, more people to sort of work toward the back, or maybe them take out some people that weren't as important, that didn't need to be there. But no, they were just people standing around while swords are slashing. You might call that an annoyance too, maybe even. It bothered me so much. It's just like, oh, okay, these people are sword fighting, I'm just gonna stand here and, oh, you shoved me in front of him. Why? Why did they not move away? But, like, that's just me nitpicking annoyance, but whatever. Okay, so, as for a track of the episode here, the one track that really stood out the most to me, and it may be more because of the scene itself, but the track, which likely isn't the actual name of the track, but it's the scene with Daenerys, the egg, and the fire. Just something about that, the track that played there, the music that was playing, was so perfect. Not too dramatic, but just dramatic and mysterious, I guess would be the right way to put it. It just worked so well. And yeah, so that's definitely my track of the episode, to say the least. And now for some quotes of the episode, and yes, I'll do my best to work through these rather quickly. The first of which, Actually, no, the first one has to do with the scene where Robert slaps Cersei, and I was going to make a profound point about that, but no, I want to move past that scene as much as possible. It just, again, because it just made me not like Robert at all. Well, despite my feelings about Cersei, I just couldn't stand that. So, okay, moving on, one of my quotes of the episode came from Syrio Forel, and this is, again, probably one of the best quotes to come from this show so far. "There is only one God, and his name is Death. And there is only one thing we say to death. Not today." I am sure that's on t-shirts. I am sure that is on merchandise for this show right now, but my God, that is a good quote. That is such a good line. And who knows, it may be something that's revisited as a theme later on. You know, Arya may come to a point where she says, "Not today." We'll see. But, it was so good. So well done. Already did the one with Sansa. Oh, well, okay, and then this brings us to one of the best parts of this episode. But I'm gonna save it for the WTF of the episode. Just, you know, get it all together. So, moving on to my theory. My theory for the show going forward, or at least in the short term, is based on the scene with the hunt and just the interactions with these characters previously. I honestly believe that either Renly or Lancel will accidentally kill Robert on the hunt. Like, one of them is just sick of his bull. They'll do something to cause an accident. I don't know, maybe Lancel will give him too much wine, or maybe poison the wine, I don't know. But something will happen that one of those two will be responsible for his death. Maybe. We'll see. But okay, that is my theory. But now we're moving into my WTF, aka what the of the episode. I know that's corny. I can't help it. But, the Gold Crown. Or, as the title itself says, a golden crown. And there's so much about the scene. First of all, the death scene itself is so... I don't even know how to describe it. It's unexpected, and the way it occurs is just so... I can't... If you see, you know, movies with people getting stabbed by swords or shot by guns, you know, you don't know how it actually feels, but if you have any sort of, like, you know, empathy pains or that kind of, like, you know, it's kind of like if a guy sees someone get kicked in the groin, you know, you're kind of like, ugh. But you get sort of numb to that sort of sensation. But then you have this scene where molten gold is poured on someone's head to the point where they die, and it's a sensation that I can't even begin to fathom. I can't even begin to fathom what that would feel like. I don't want to find out what that would feel like, obviously, but it's such a surreal scene to me, and it leads on to so many other just amazing aspects that make this episode great by themselves. First of all, well, one of the lines I had was when Drogo brings up the pot of the molten gold, he says, "A crown for a king." And then he pours it over him, and first of all, I know it's fantasy, but I would have expected at least one of those other guys to have some of that molten gold get on them. I mean, that stuff splashes, dude. But what really brings me around is the final line of the episode, and it comes from Daenerys, and it goes all the way back to the scene with her and the egg in the fire. And the line is this: looking at the dead body of her brother. She says, "He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon." And this hit me especially hard the second time I watched, because I don't remember exactly how I reacted to it on camera, but it just... Daenerys... It shows to me that Daenerys is clearly the one meant to... Like, she is the one with dragon's blood. She is... Because I mean, again, it's such a small thing, but her holding that egg after it had been in those molten hot fires, it's part of a sign that just says to me, she is going to be a huge figure here. I don't think she may die eventually down the line, but I don't think it'll be for a long while. And, oh, just so much about that scene just brought the entire episode... Well, it brought it full circle, basically, just from the beginning to the end. So well done. So well done. Even though, well, technically the egg scene was not the first scene of the show, I think. Whatever. Anyway, and as we move into my overall thoughts on this episode, there is one more thing I want to bring up. And it's that... the character of Viserys, whatever. I obviously never did care to fully learn how to pronounce his name. But it's obvious from the previous videos that I just did not care for him. I did not care for him. I would have been completely fine if he just died. From much earlier on. But there are things about this episode that do bring me to have some sympathy for him as a character. Not much, but some sympathy. Now, as he says when Ser Jorah stops him from leaving with the eggs, he refers to how can you be a king without fear, without love? And I mean, several other things, but especially in that last scene before he dies, it doesn't excuse what he does at all, but he's very drunk. Like, it's clear he is extremely drunk, and possibly not entirely in control of himself. So, who knows, he may have, I don't know, in my mind it's like, what if he was sort of blackout drunk, which I've seen people that are blackout drunk that act very erratically. They're not asleep, but they're acting very erratically. And what if that scene, just as he realizes, or as they pop or break one of his shoulder bones as they're dragging him over, like, what if that is his moment of sobering up and realizing what he's done? And like, he begs for mercy, which, you know, anyone would, no matter if they're a good guy or a bad guy at that point. But I don't know. It makes that scene just, while I'm glad he's gone, I feel a bit of sadness for him as a character. That maybe he could have grown into someone better. It didn't seem likely, but it could have been a possibility. And as for, again, well, I mean, it should be pretty clear at this point, but my overall thoughts on the episode, I loved it. This is definitely, at least at this point, my favorite episode so far. It is a very strong one. It may get replaced somewhere down the line, but at this point, I can definitely say it's my favorite episode, you know, out of the 6 episodes I've watched so far. Oh, but that's all for this episode. I still went well over 30 minutes. I apologize, everyone. I thought this would go quicker, but apparently not. But moving into the next episode, I will be starting the new format where I will be doing a combination of reaction and review at the end. How all that ends up getting said and done, especially trying to get some full versions out there, we'll just have to wait and see, but that does mean that these videos will be coming out more frequently. So until next time, for You Win or You Die, I'm Papa Ken, and I will see you all next video.